Those of you who are not familiar with NetX information system, let me give you a brief introduction. NetX information system is an organization founded by engineers and is technology driven. With over 20 years of experience and best-of-breed partners, we have a deep commitment to developing the solutions that meet our customers' needs. But you did not join us today to hear about NetX, but to learn how to simplify management of flexible application and desktop delivery. Well, so why is virtualization so popular? Virtualization is nothing more than decoupling of IT resources. The forms of virtualizations that are most frequently applied include network, storage, server, application, and desktop virtualizations. In the server virtualization realm, CapEx and OpEx savings have been realized by IT, and IT has been able to drive the green IT effort with the energy savings that virtualizations generate. But the business drivers for desktop virtualization are much different. Virtualization provides a foundation to enable people to access their apps, desktops, and data from anywhere, anytime, with any device. Furthermore, it can accelerate merger and acquisition activity, branch expansion, or bringing new business units online. Desktop virtualization can allow for full-time teleworkers, possibly reducing office size locations, and certainly allowing them to work on days like today on the East Coast where it's snowing everywhere. A centralized architecture lets IT support users efficiently across multiple locations by delivering desktops and apps as secure on-demand services. Small and mid-sized businesses can achieve a much more professional level of IT service through centralized user management, while eliminating the headaches that come with non-standard endpoint environment typical of most small to medium-sized businesses. In addition to that, the falling cost for desktop virtualization has been another business driver. Hyper-V, now included for free in the new Windows servers 2008 and 2012, makes it a much more cost-effective solution than some of the other vendors. Server hardware pricing has fallen faster than what you would expect if only Moore's law would be at play, and new software solutions and the falling cost of flash memory can take hundreds of dollars out of the cost of each virtual desktops. Users now access corporate resources in more places than ever, often over public networks. This is changing the way IT thinks about networking. Why invest heavily in distributed private network infrastructure when you can leverage a public internet service in tandem with a secure connection? New enterprise mobility management solutions focus on allowing remote users to access apps, desktops, data over secure network connections, rather than joining their devices to the network, and greatly simplifying network security for IT. So what is the real business driver for virtualization? The number one reason is flexible, accessible application and desktop delivery. As we determined earlier, virtualization is nothing more than the decoupling of IT resources. So how do we control, maintain, and support the desktop as a concept, as an endpoint device from an IT professional and an end-user perspective? The first step in the desktop transformation is to virtualize the user. User state virtualization enables data and user settings to follow the user, keeping users productive even when they change devices. Users maintain access to their personalized Windows experience across multiple connected or disconnected devices. User state virtualization can also mitigate productivity loss of PC replacement. The central copy of the data is on the network, so it is easily restored in case of a lost or stolen PC, and the user settings can be reapplied automatically. User state virtualization should be the first part of all VDI solutions. For personal VDI environments, user state virtualization should be used to reduce the storage requirements of the infrastructure by redirecting and storing user data and settings in separate storage locations other than the VDI desktop. VDI with user state virtualization provides benefits by taking the data and the settings layer and making it portable in either virtual desktop solution, whether that's a remote desktop services host or a virtual desktop coming from a VDI infrastructure. The next step would be application virtualization. This improves portability, manageability, and compatibility and reduces conflicts of Windows end-user applications. Virtualized applications run in their own discrete or virtual environments. Combined with streaming, this can provide substantial CapEx savings for storage infrastructure required for server-based virtualization, since it allows for stateless virtual desktops to be deployed and allows for incompatible applications to run on the same OS without disrupting the user. The before-mentioned steps of user and application virtualization will ultimately lead to a golden OS image, which will considerably reduce the storage requirements for centralized virtual desktop deployment, respectively make it easier to maintain a remote desktop services host or a terminal server farm. The goal with the separation is to create a loosely coupled infrastructure where it is easier to create a very dynamic application and or desktop delivery solution. In essence, it's a combination of user environment management and application and desktop delivery to achieve dynamic composition of the user's environment. Simplifying management by providing desktops and applications managed across virtual desktop infrastructure, terminal servers or RDSH, blades or PCs from a single console, multiple deployments, one management center. That's the goal of Dell vWorkspace. Even multiple domains and hypervisors can be supported from a single console. Simplify management with automation of tasks. Set it and go. Dell with vWorkspace is the only vendor who has already included features that substantially improve performance when building on top of Microsoft Hyper-V Foundation. vWorkspace Hyper-V Catalyst components provide the following benefits. Drive down the cost of desktop virtualization, reduction in the amount of storage required, plus the ability to leverage low-cost, direct attached storage instead of high-cost SANs. Provide lightning-fast provisioning and reprovisioning of virtual machines. Ensure best user experience through advanced load balancing. Hyper-deploy reduces storage costs through storage optimization. It also reduces the amount of time required to provision a virtual desktop. Normally, the virtual desktop provisioning process begins by copying a golden image to the location where the new virtual desktop resides. The golden image can easily be 20 gig or more, so the copy process can take a while. Hyper-deploy makes it possible to provision the new virtual desktop and then boot it almost immediately. This is accomplished by streaming the virtual desktop component required for boot first, then copying the rest of the golden image in the background later. Hyper-cache is an intelligent caching algorithm that helps drive down disk I/O. It works by monitoring block usage. Blocks that are read frequently are cached to the memory so they can be accessed much more quickly. This caching can go a long way toward improving virtual desktop startup times. The nice thing about Hyper-cache is that it is very dynamic. Hyper-cache constantly monitors the frequency with which cached blocks are accessed. If Hyper-cache determines that a block is being accessed more frequently than a block that has been cached, then the less popular block will be removed from the cache to make room for the block that currently resides only on disk. Hypercache has been updated in Dell vWorkspace 8 and now supports Hyper-V 3.0. In addition, Dell vWorkspace has always supported terminal server and remote desktop services hosts with wizard-based application publishing, automated deployment, advanced load balancing, and seamless windows. Since the end-user experience is so important, monitoring of the end-user experience is even more important. Real-time monitoring and diagnostics for virtual infrastructures used in the vWorkspace environment by leveraging Dell's Foglight product allows to deliver a session history. It's like a user experience time machine. You can review end-user experience at times in the past. The meaning for IT is that the most important issues or problems can be fixed first. It reduces the mean time to resolution. It reduces penalties associated with outages. And it improves inter-team communications and therefore effectiveness. Fewer outages for users mean more productivity. As we said earlier, critical to the acceptance of virtual desktops is a strong user experience. If the new virtual desktop doesn't respond like a user's old physical desktops, organizations run the risk of acceptance issues. To ensure the best possible user experience with their new virtual desktops, vWorkspace provides the following capabilities: WAN acceleration, universal device support, universal printer, multi-monitor support, multimedia acceleration, be that for Windows Media Player or Flash, graphics acceleration, text echo, as well as bidirectional audio. Combined with all of this is the ability to bring your own device. vWorkspace connectors are continuously updated, whether we're talking about Java, Linux, Macs, iOS, Windows, Android. The idea is access your applications anytime, anywhere, from any device. Let me give you a brief conceptual overview of what a vWorkspace implementation and working could look like. From the central management console, the administrators design the environment and the data gets stored in a relational database. A user may decide to access through a secure gateway and the vWorkspace portal his application or desktop. The user will be communicating with the connection broker, who then will determine where the application or the desktop resides. It might be on a remote desktop services host. It might be a virtual desktop infrastructure. It might be a personal or a blade computer. The connection broker directs the user to that environment, and depending on who the user profile, what the user profile says, the user may actually be able to take advantage of the experience optimization pack to get connected. So in summary, Dell vWorkspace allows free choice of platform, whether you want to go physical, virtual, or terminal server, free choice of endpoints, free choice of virtual desktops and virtual apps, as well as ease of management. One pane of glass, and it includes the user workspace virtualization component, the built-in reporting and auditing, delegation of control, role-based administration, managed with PowerShell commandlets. With that, let me turn over the screen and controls to Michael LeBeau from Dell, who will now give us a demonstration.
Thank you, Stefan. Let me get my screens organized here. And we'll bring the workspace into fruition. I do apologize. I'm getting a not responded or not responding for my application. One moment. All right, I'm still waiting for my system to come back alive, so bear with me. Organizer, can you please take away my presenter rights and then grant them to me again, please? All right, we should be able to see my screen at this time. Would someone please confirm that? All right. Thank you. All right, with the workspace, to go along with what Stefan has presented here, the core is the user virtualization. The users need to be able to very quickly move in between different systems, different portals. And as the workspace is designed to allow the user to access their desktop from anywhere, from any device, having user profile management or user portability is going to be key with that. As part of the workspace, the user profile management is a built-in function for vWorkspace, and in this, we provide several methods in which we can store the user's profiles. First and foremost is we do have the ability to capture the user's profile, and that is going to be specific folders on the user's disk, as well as any one of the subkeys of the HK current user hive. We can store those components in each one of our silos, and we can store that with compression. The default is a high compression, or about an 8-to-1 compression for the user's profile, and that allows us to capture that information, compress it, and then store it. So we're not consuming bandwidth while we're grabbing the user's profiles themselves. The logging level can be set for basic or detailed in case you do need to determine the efficacy of the storage of the user's profiles. And the refresh interval is set for 1 minute by default. You can have multiple storage servers. The only rule of thumb for the storage server is that the disk should be very fast, usually about 1500 RPM disk or faster, in order to facilitate the quick access, read and write of the user's profiles. And again, you can have as many of these storage servers as you like. The technology of siloing, which allows vWorkspace to determine which connection type is going to store what user data in what server, allows us to have multiple data sets for users depending on how they're accessing vWorkspace. So if you have one desktop that's presented via an RDSH session, that can be stored and maintained. However, if the user needs a different desktop for a Windows desktop implementation, that too can be stored. So the user will have that same environment, whichever connection type that they use, or you can combine these in one so they have the same experience each and every time that they log on with vWorkspace. Within this, the user profile management is broken out into different key components of the HK current user hive. With vWorkspace, we could easily extend this. Take, for instance, if we wanted to go out and grab information pertaining to Outlook. If you have as part of your golden image Microsoft Office installed as part of that image itself, or if it's delivered via RDSH or any other mechanism available within vWorkspace, we can capture that information. All we have to do is determine what information we want to capture. In this case, if it's a Microsoft Office component that we did want to capture, all we'd have to do is specify the registry key in which we'd like to capture. And in this, it allows us to easily browse through the user's registry and find the component that we're looking for. In this case, we'll look at the Microsoft Connection Wizard just for an example, and we can grab just that piece of the registry. However, anything underneath the selected subkey will be captured. So as long as we list the parent subkey as what we want to capture, every single registry entry under that subkey will be captured as part of the user profile maintenance. Conversely, we can also select a special folder. If there's a particular folder that we'd like to capture for those users, be it one of the listed shell folders, or if you have a specific other folder that you'd like to capture, that can be had as well. The logon processing is when we want to capture that information, either pulling it back to the user session or writing it back to the database. Typically, we try and perform this synchronously as the user is logged on. And then your profile persistence, do we want to set this profile to be auto-saved at a specified interval or only at log-off? Either way, we'll have the changes of the user session when they log off, or we can save those changes as the user proceeds in their session in case there's a disconnect at any point that was unexpected. The user will be able to return to their desktop having the most current settings saved. The scope of this can either be global, which would apply to all users that connect through vWorkspace, or they can be siloed. As I mentioned, the silos are a way in which we can group the settings for the different connection types. In this case, we can choose between RDSH and Windows Desktop, as I have this set up. Additionally, we can add more silos. There's no limit to the number of silos or groupings you can have in vWorkspace for storing the user profile data. Within vWorkspace, there is what we call targeting. Targeting is nothing more than the ability to name certain resources, either users, groups, OUs, or individual IP addresses, or we have the ability to go in and name specific users based on criteria. And this is something I'll show you as we move further within vWorkspace. What I've done here is I've gone in and set a target, so any user that's a member of the domain users group will be subject to having their profile captured at this specified interval. The last step in here is to assign permissions, which are available through vWorkspace for management purposes. So what we've just done here is we've determined that we want to capture the user's settings. So we're going to virtualize those users to where every time they log on through vWorkspace, through our broker, these settings will be pushed down to their desktop via RDSH or through a VDI component. That way the users have that same experience every single time they log on. The next step is to virtualize your applications. And in that route, vWorkspace can help you in a number of ways, whether it be virtualized applications, which I work in a very small virtual world, so I don't have any of those set up, or we have MSI packages that we can push down to the individual system. On top of that, we do have our management consoles, which are nothing more than our RDSH servers. If I were to connect to this one server, I'd be able to go and look at that server and also note the applications that are on this server. This allows me to publish any applications I want to an RDSH or a terminal service machine so that I can spin these applications out to the users. It could be any one of the applications that I can present to a desktop seamlessly, or we can connect to the applications through our application portal. Again, I'll show you that as we move forward. You also have the ability to go in and set up your remote desktops. If you have a server-based desktop that's on an RDSH server, vWorkspace can promote that for you and allow your users to connect and facilitate with the user virtualization along with the application virtualization in the same console. The last step you have within vWorkspace is the virtualization of the desktops themselves. With within vWorkspace, it's very easy to go in and create virtual desktops based on a template. As Stefan had mentioned earlier, within vWorkspace, there's two components within vWorkspace called the Hyper-V Catalyst components. These are the Hyper-Deploy and the Hyper-Cache, where the Hyper-Deploy allows vWorkspace to copy the golden image from one hypervisor where it has been created to the other hypervisors in the farm. We can do that seamlessly in the back end, copying the main components first so we can start building the virtual desktops. And with the desktop groups, all we're going to do is create a desktop group, and we're going to build virtual machines based on that golden image. In this case, we are truly hypervisor agnostic. In other words, we don't care what the hypervisor is. It could be VMware, it could be Parallels Virtuoso, it could be Microsoft SEVMM. The choice with vWorkspace is Microsoft Hyper-V, because that's where we have the Catalyst components built into the system, where we can take full advantage of what Microsoft is offering, especially in the Hyper-V based on the 2012 R2 server platform. Within this, we do have to choose what kind of virtual desktops we're going to produce, be they traditional or persistent desktops, which typically take up copious quantities of disk space requiring a SAN, or we can have cloud or pooled-based virtual desktops. With this, we can reduce the amount of disk space that's required using local storage on the hypervisor server rather than having to implement external storage to hold the larger images. This also lets us take advantage of Microsoft's deduping feature, which is new to Server 2012 R2, which will allow us to reduce each one of the virtual desktops to about 300 megs of disk space. Once we choose the type that we're going to use, we do have to verify our credentials so we can create the accounts in our domain. And then with the pool-based solution, we do have to have a minimum number of machines at the ready and a maximum number of machines that are available. This allows vWorkspace to continually spin up virtual machines on demand, giving us a demand buffer. So if 2 machines are used, vWorkspace will automatically spin up a 3rd machine at the ready for the next user that's going to connect. The next step is to go in and provide the provisioning settings. In this, we do have to go in and edit the provisioning settings, saving our template, and then allowing us to choose any one of the templates that are available within vWorkspace. Do note that vWorkspace can virtualize your RDSH servers in case you have a need to spin one of those up quickly. Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and XP are all supported within vWorkspace. In this example, I'll use the Windows 7 template. Because we are using templates, and it is possible to go in and open up that template, pack it, patch it, install an application, or just change a single lowly registry entry, we do want to look for any kind of updates. This update allows us to incorporate any changes to the template into vWorkspace quickly and easily. If there are any changes, vWorkspace will offer to destroy the existing machines and build new ones based on the new template. The next step here is to determine which hypervisors that vWorkspace will create the VDIs on. In this case, we can select individual hosts and we'll load balance among the selected hosts, or if you select all hosts, vWorkspace will automatically load balance across multiple hypervisors, creating the virtual machines on the least used hypervisor. In this case, I've got one hypervisor that I'm going to use, so I'll load balance across that one. You do have a base name and a values that will be incorporated as part of the question marks. In other words, the first machine will be test 3001, and we'll step by one for each virtual machine that's created from that point. And then you have your properties for your virtual desktops. In this case, if we were to look at items that we wanted to create or specify within the virtual platform, we could easily do that. In this case, it's going to be selecting the operating system. We can also select the operating platform in this case. The operating system that we're going to use, whether it's going to be Windows Vista 7, Windows 8, and the 32 and 64-bit architecture. You do have ability for registration, time zone, a public key if you don't have a KMS server, and then your customization types. This is important to understand that we do use our own proprietary version of SysPrep, although Microsoft SysPrep and Direct SysPrep can be used. The machines are automatically added to the domain, in this case specifying your domain, the account that we're going to use to add the machine to the domain, and to verify that account. The location of the virtual desktops can be specified, as well as the local account that will be created on the workstation for management, the settings of the firewall, regional settings, and you have a run once command in case there's a script that's needed to configure the machine. And then we'll write an identification string to the registry of the virtual desktop. Once this is performed, there's one more step that has to be made, and that is to configure the hardware itself. Within vWorkspace, you do have the ability to use the template settings from the virtual desktop that's being used as the template. You can use a standard video adapter, or if you have a matched components, we can use the remote FX GPU, which supports multiple desktop monitors. And then your memory needs to be managed as well. We can use the template setting from the virtual machine that we're using as our template. We can set a static memory value, or the best of all worlds, you can have dynamic memory. This allows the administrator to determine how much memory will be used initially and up to a certain amount. The memory is allocated to the VDIs based on demand, and of course there's a 20% memory buffer that we'll use, so we're not constantly having to add memory to the machines. This allows you to take advantage of the hardware on the hypervisor and not have to load up too much memory in it to run the virtual machines. In other words, it's the best in memory management. Memory priority can be set, and network settings can be made to support your local VLANs if you're using those in your environment. The next series of steps are essentially enabling or disabling the desktop group, setting the client assignment. Since we are pooled-based, it'll automatically be assigned to an individual user. In other words, the user will get a virtual machine on every connection. Your access can be set. If you do have a limitation for your access, that you have a maintenance window, you can deny access during that maintenance window. Load balancing, as I mentioned, is automatic. Your user privileges can be set to an individual user, administrator, or power users. Auto session log on is looking for certain applications that are well known to not shut down in a local VDI environment. In this case, if these applications are slow to shut down, we'll go ahead and shut them down for you, leaving the virtual desktop to shut down gracefully. You can conserve your power by gracefully shutting down machines after a certain amount of time where they're inactive, and then you can select your session protocol. We do default to RDP 8, although RDP 7 is supported. When you're using Windows 7, you will have to upgrade the RDP client on the template machine in order to use RDP 8, which is by far the most efficient in the market today. If you're still using RDP 7, you do have the ability to turn on EOP Extreme. EOP is nothing more than Experience Optimized Protocol, and this is where vWorkspace is opening up additional channels in the RDP connection in order to give the users the best experience possible, or next to being on a physical workstation. We do have support for EOP audio, which can be enabled or disabled, and you have task automation. Task automation is nothing more than a series of published tasks that administrators can force on the virtual desktops, and this could be done at logon or at a scheduled interval. This could be anything from shutting the machine down to reprovisioning the operating system to copying files to the computer, all the way down to installing MSI packages automatically. These can be performed immediately when the user logs off, or they can be scheduled as well. And the last step you have is the setting your permissions. Once this is done, you'll see that the desktop group gets created. As that desktop group is created, it takes a few minutes for the virtual machines to create. Literally, in about 2 minutes, I'll have virtual machines ready to go. While we're waiting for that, keep in mind that vWorkspace does have targeting, and this allows you to combine anything from users, groups, your devices by IP address or device names, all the way down to organizational units. And when you have your targets, each one of these targets can have different components assigned to that. that target. And these components can be anything from your desktop groupings to your Windows color schemes, all the way down to your connection policies, drive mappings, printer mappings, and applications that can be assigned to the user. When we're using the connection policies, it's important to know that within vWorkspace, we can restrict exactly how the users will have their local devices mapped to them. In the case of remote computer sound, most users want to have a desktop sound so they feel like they're on a desktop themselves, and will bring the sound to the local computer, although we do have the ability to not play the sound or just leave it at the remote computer should we choose to do so. With your local devices, anything from disk drives to smart cards to printers or EOP printers can be assigned to the users. And there's a big difference in between printers and EOP printers. Printer is a standard Windows printer, which does not offer compression, and it takes a while to push a print job all the way to the print server, and that consumes much needed bandwidth. With the EOP printers, which is an Experience Optimized Protocol printer or a universal print driver, this one print driver available through vWorkspace allows administrators to use that single print driver for every printer that they have in their environment today, and allows for the users to use that one driver so you don't have the driver mask, plus it has an 8:1 compression ratio for the print job, allowing the users to print effectively and easily without chewing up too much bandwidth. USB devices, clipboard, serial port, and microphone for bidirectional audio can also be redirected using EOP. So you do have a number of connection policies that can be used. Drives can be mapped for those users, as well as printers can be mapped for those users, so they have the same experience every time they connect, no matter how they connect, whether it be within the confines of the network or if they're connecting over an iPad. Applications can be managed. Any application that you have, whether it's going to be a RDP published desktop, or if you're publishing desktops based on one of the desktop groups where you have an application that will only run successfully if it's published to, say, a Windows 7 desktop, those can be assigned to specific groups of users so that when they do log on, they'll have the specified desktops or applications available to them. There's a number of other changes within vWorkspace. One includes the built-in Diagnostics and Monitoring within vWorkspace. This used to be an add-on feature that's now available in every version of vWorkspace, and this allows the administrators to be able to connect not only to the connection or look at the connection, but connect to the connection broker and see the database status of that broker or the functioning of that machine itself. Other roles that are available within the system, and take for instance this server Big Dog is my print server, and we can see the CPU load, network load, memory usage, and disk space. For all the terminal servers that we have, I do have RDSH10 that's live and active. We can see the status of that, as well as the virtual desktops. Any desktops that are up and running, we have the ability to go in and connect to and look at the status of any one of those desktops that are currently running. And this is web-based, so it has to go out and collect the information on that machine. Web access is also part of vWorkspace. When vWorkspace is installed, you have the option to create a website. This website is fully securable, as well as setting up your default rules for IP addressing, custom rules for your VPN connections. A secure gateway can be created within vWorkspace itself, and then you have advanced settings for NATing and proxies. It can be linked to one or more domains, so we do span multiple domains within vWorkspace, as well as have the ability to combine Quest Password Manager to enable web-based password management within vWorkspace. Credentials pass-through can be turned on, as well as creating a two-factor authentication if you want to bring in a Radius server for security purposes. The biggest question I get within vWorkspace is, can I change it? Can I make it mine or customize it? And the answer is yes. Anytime you change the website, you can change all the colors. You have the customization of the colors, the text, the graphics that are available on the website itself. And once this information is, in fact, saved, we'll go ahead and write it up to the website so that every user that connects from this point forward will have access to that same website. Right, as we're working through this, we should see that in vWorkspace, we've already gone in and spun up 2 virtual machines. It took just a little over 2 minutes to complete these, the virtualization or the creation of these VDIs within vWorkspace. So let's go and take a look at what those desktops look like. Within the hypervisor, we're going to go ahead and connect to the hypervisor and connect directly to the virtual machines that we've just created. In this case, we'll choose the virtual machine 3001. Connecting to this virtual machine through the hypervisor is not the direct way to connect to the VDI to take advantage of vWorkspace. However, I'll show you how to take advantage of vWorkspace. Within this machine, once we log on to this machine, as part of the template machine, I've created and put on the desktop the vWorkspace application portal app. This is the key to vWorkspace. In other words, the application portable is available for every platform that's out on the market today, be it Mac, iOS device, a Linux device, Android device, Windows device. It does not matter. This app portal is available for you. And this is how the users can use vWorkspace to connect to vWorkspace at any point in time and get the applications that they need. Of course, this is connecting through the broker. The broker will use the targeting to determine who that user is, what group they're a member of, and what resources that they need to have. So we've taken the user and virtualized that user, and when they connect through the broker, we'll bring the user personalization to their connection, as well as bringing all the resources as defined by vWorkspace. In this case, the user can have their choice of desktops, being it a remote desktop based on the RDSH server, all the way down to a Windows 7 or a Windows 8 desktop. Or if there's specific applications that the users need to run, we can have those applications published, and that user can select the application and run it from the portal. This portal can be propagated out as a standard MSI, so we can push it to any desktop, be it a physical or virtual desktop, as well as it's downloadable from the Apple App Store or the Android application store as well. Once in the application portal, you launch an application and the setting button is dark, you can actually click on the session and see vWorkspace connecting to the RDSH server in the background. And keep in mind, this is my virtual environment, and it runs a little slow at times. All right, so we should have that application popping up in the back end as we go forward. But this is the application portal, and this is how in vWorkspace the users are going to access the applications within vWorkspace. All right, that gives you a 10,000-foot view of vWorkspace, giving the users the ability to not only access their applications remotely. Just being a first launch for this, I have a lot to clean up. But we could easily return back to the portal. If we needed to run another application, we can fire that up. Or if we needed another desktop, we have the ability to choose the desktops as needed. So the user has choices every time they log on. And when you're connecting through the broker, the user virtualization will travel with the user. So they have the same consistent desktop every time they connect to a desktop. Right, with that, let's go ahead and turn it back over to vWorkspace. That covers most of vWorkspace, looking at it from the user virtualization perspective. And at this point in time, I'd like to turn this back to Stefan.
Yes, thank you very much, Michael. So to quickly summarize, the smarter way to do desktop virtualization is vWorkspace. It's simplified. Consolidation reduces complexity. It's efficient. It's flexible. It's scalable. It's not just for proof of concept. And it's cost-effective, especially when it is combined with Hyper-V. So the fundamental message here is work smarter, not harder. At this point, I'd like to open it to questions. Feel free to give us some questions here. If you want to open up the, thank you, Antoine. Any questions?
Please note you may also type your questions into the question area here. And it looks like the one question we have so far, let me just open this up here, is how do you manage PKI search if you're utilizing mandatory profiles?
All right, Antoine, restate that question. How do you manage PKI certs?
Yes. How do you manage PKI search if you're utilizing mandatory profiles?
When we're utilizing the mandatory profiles, the user management or the user virtualization, we should be able to capture the area of the disk or the registry where those profiles reside. I'd have to look at that further for any different details. I believe that could be captured through the registry and disk combination. But I'd have to delve into that a little bit further to completely answer your question. Antoine, can I get that sent to me so I can answer that question in toto?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Again, you can go ahead and type them into the chat window. I've also, this is a question window, excuse me. I've also unmuted your line so you may be able to speak. Okay. The next question, will user virtualization follow users on different OSs?
That's going to be grouped by the OS family. The short answer is if the OS is in the same OS family. Take, for instance, Vista, Win 7 are all in a family. So if you have a user connecting in that family, then yes, it is portable. However, the Windows XP is a previous generation or a previous family of the OS. And because of that, the structure of how the user profiles are created and where they're written are different. And so to move from XP to Windows 7 and back to XP would not be successful just because the difference in the profile types. Now, keeping in tune with vWorkspace, you can create multiple silos. And you might have a desktop group of XP machines, a desktop group of Windows 7 or Windows 8.1 machines, and you can have a separate silo for storage of the user profiles for each one of those platforms. And so it doesn't allow the user to move in between the different generations or families of operating systems, but if you have multiple generations of operating systems, we can configure vWorkspace to successfully store the user profiles for each one of those generations of operating systems.
Excellent.
Any other questions?
I don't see any other questions coming through at the moment.
Well, then I would like to thank you for attending and extend my special thanks to Michael LeBeau from Dell to take the time out to demonstrate the product. Please feel free, should you have any questions, to send us an email at sales@netxinc.com. And with that, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you, Antoine. Thank you for attending.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Goodbye.